Welcome back everybody. In the last episode we installed this fantastic roller shutter onto this Triton ute. In this episode we're installing a central locking kit onto the tailgate. Should be pretty easy, so come along and we'll show you how. So this is an Canopy's 4x4 kit which matches the roller shutter we just installed on this Triton ute. It comes with the brackets required to mount it onto your tailgate, including all the little bits and pieces that go into this bracket. We'll show that as part of this video because interestingly this doesn't come with any instructions, so there's a little bit of interpretation that needs to happen. It also comes with the actuator, which is what operates the lock by your central locking, and interestingly you would normally put this actuator in and intercept the locking rod that runs from your key lock barrel to the handle. Now most modern utes don't have that, so in this case it looks like this actuator actually moves the bracket across and locks the handle so that it can't be operated when it's in the lock position. That's quite a nifty solution to the modern vehicle where you don't have the locking barrel and the actuator rod in these rear tailgates. You also get all the required hardware, a wiring loom which is specific to your particular vehicle, and some connectors for when we get up to the front so we can tie it into the existing vehicle wiring. Now before you go ordering your kit for your late model Triton, please note there are two different handle types used. On the MQ, as we're installing here, and the base model MR, there's a short handle as per this image, and it has a slightly different mechanism to the premium MR models, where you have the long handle that has a garnish around it. That can be chrome or black in either version. So if you've got the long handle, as per this image, make sure you order the kit that is specifically suited to that, which locates the actuator on the opposite or right hand side. So now we'll get into the install. If you've got a tray liner, the first step is to remove the back cover off the tailgate. You do that by popping off the screw covers, removing the screws, and then pulling it off. Same applies to the metal cover on the tailgate. Remove that, and that gives access to all the bits and bobs inside. So having a good look at this bracket, it appears the actuator locks onto the bracket like so that it's facing towards the tab which comes out. Now you'll notice there's a hole in the actuator and this extra little bracket which also has a hole. So this slides into the bracket like so and fixes onto the actuator itself, which we'll show you through the video. Through the operation of the actuator, it'll actually slide this backwards and forwards, which is the locking mechanism for the latch itself. So now we'll show you exactly where this bracket goes and how it all goes together. So taking this bracket, if we flip it upside down like so, which is how it goes into the tailgate, you'll see on a Triton there's two bolts here which hold the lever mechanism with the rods that go off to the latches on either side. You remove these two bolts, and then there's a tab here which we need to clip out, which is holding on the wiring loom, and then this will slide under the bodywork and we'll retrofit a bolt onto the position where this wiring loom tab is and screw the locking mechanism back in, which will secure this into the back of the tailgate itself. So the first thing you want to do is obviously fix the actuator onto the bracket, put this piece in and secure it onto the actuator itself so it's one complete assembly. Then you would attach the wiring harness so that it's all ready to go. Undo all this and then we can slide it in and fix it into place. Now on the back of the actuator you'll see these locating nubs and they'll go into two of the holes on the back of the bracket like so. And then in the kit you have these threaded screws and they go into the remaining holes to secure the actuator onto the back of the bracket. And you'll see this little slot here on the bracket slides into the larger bracket itself and that will hold it in place. Now it's just a case of joining this bracket onto the actuator rod so that it can move in and out. So it appears the best method using the hardware in the kit is to use one of these Allen key bolts. You feed it through and then there's a locking nut which will go onto the back. So that's the actuator and the bracket that goes onto the rod all secured into place. So now we'll remove the two bolts and this wiring loom connector. So we'll just pop the clip out you just push the tabs in and move the wiring harness out of the way. Then you want to undo these 2 bolts. Now what you want to do is plug in the wiring harness connector onto the actuator so that you can slide it all in together. Now we've had a few goes at this, so we've worked out the right way. You want to undo our second wiring harness connector here, just to drop the harness down so we can slide all this in. Then this whole bracket, actuator and mechanism slides in underneath. And sits like so. So the black piece of the bracket which goes onto your locking mechanism sits on top, and then the little L-shaped bracket which goes onto where your wiring harness connector sits in underneath. That has it all nicely parallel with the tailgate and sitting quite well. And then it's just a case of putting the original bolts back in to this side of the bracket so it holds it all into the captive bracket of the locking mechanism. Then we need to put in another one of these bolts with washers, spring nuts and the locking nut onto this side, and the hardware installation is pretty much done. So we put the factory bolts back into the locking mechanism like so. Leave it all loose for now so you can adjust it. Then we have a spring nut, a washer which goes into the existing wiring harness hole, and then a washer and another nut in from underneath. And now we're loosely installed into the tailgate. You can test by putting your finger under here and moving the rod backwards and forwards to get an idea of how this works. Noting that your vehicle's probably in the unlock position, leave it in the unlock position so it's synced up with your central locking when you go to connect it all up. Now for the tricky bit, in that we need to route this harness down through the tailgate, out near the passenger side hinge if you're in a right-hand drive vehicle, down under the body and into the cabin where we can splice into the correct wires to make this all work with your central locking system. Now when it comes to routing this harness through, we're just going to follow the existing harness that comes through for the camera and the brake light. So you'll see in here there's an existing harness which is all clipped into the tailgate itself. We'll cable tie onto that. That harness comes out through this plate here. There's a screw in here, so we'll undo that and then slot it in through the grommet here in the back of the tub. So you just undo the screw for the cap at the base of the tailgate and remove the cover, and you can see there's a grommet here at the bottom of the tailgate and a grommet here which goes in underneath the tray. So we'll pop our wiring harness out through here, in through that grommet, and then we'll cable tie it onto this harness where it runs under the tray up to the front of the vehicle. Be sure to clip the harness back into place so that it's located onto the back of the tailgate. And now we'll just come through and zip tie our new harness onto the factory harness, work our way and pop it out through the bottom of the tailgate. Now while the cabling's being routed underneath the vehicle, we just need to remove these sill plates and the kick panel over here at the front, and that will give us access to the wiring harness we need to tap into. So as you follow the factory wiring up through the vehicle, there's a grommet down under the seat here, and it's very easy just to poke the wiring harness up through, and then really that's a hard bit done. We've just got to tap into the harness up the front here behind the kick panel and give it a test run and see if it all works. In behind the kick panel here, you've got the top plug here, which you pull out. We've removed the plastic sheathing off the harness here, and then we're splicing into these 2 blue wires. There's a blue wire with a black trace and a blue wire with a red trace. Now the black goes to the blue wire with the black trace, which makes sense, and the red goes to the blue wire with the red trace. Now our particular kit comes with these piggyback clips. So you strip the 2 wires on the harness, feed them into the back here and push it down, and then this side here with the claws on it actually clips over the wire that you're trying to splice into, so you don't need to strip that and solder it. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of these, but given this is a fairly new vehicle, it's only got 30,000 Ks on it, I think we'll use this first, make sure it's all going to work, and if down the track this connection does come loose, it's a simple case of just taking it off, stripping a bit of the insulation off the main wiring harness and soldering the two joints together. Okay, here's our two connectors on. So we've got the red onto the blue with the red trace and the black onto the blue with the black trace. It's just a simple case of plugging this main harness back in now, and we'll test it out and see if it works. And then we'll come through and tidy up all this harness to get it all nicely tied in. But it's actually interesting that they've got these clips that you can clip the wiring harness in as you run it down the sill. So that keeps it all nice and tidy. It's just in here I want to tidy it up a little bit before we put the kick panel back on. So we're just going to test it out, and fingers crossed we got it the right way around. What do you reckon, Greg?
Let's hope so.
We'll soon find out. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that actually stops this portion of the latch from moving the operating rods. And then if we unlock it, you can see you can move the handle in and out freely. So that's pretty cool. So this installation, other than running the wiring harness up through the underside of the vehicle and up through the grommet under the passenger side seat, is pretty easy. As opposed to the roller shutter, which took a little bit of finagling. But really, we now have a fantastic setup where you can secure this roller shutter and still be able to open the tailgate and get access without having to use a key at all on the back of the vehicle. Now that we know it's all working, it's just a case of putting everything back together. So on goes the rear panel, then the liner panel, and we're done. So as you can see, that was a very easy install. I think if you've got a ute that doesn't have central locking, definitely look at a central locking kit to secure the tailgate, because it's dead simple and easy to do. If you've got any other suggestions, put them in the comments below. If you love this video, don't forget to like it, share it around to anyone that might use it, and subscribe to our channel for other great content. Thanks for watching, and as I always say, get out there, stay safe, and have fun. We'll catch you next time.